Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of an unexpected podcast. And with me, I've got our usual hosts of Matt, Iverson, Nick, and Rob joining us. And then also we have a guest appearance from Evan and possibly coming in later in the episode, Rainier. So we got a full house today, and probably because we have some real big news. A lot of big drops happened. We're talking about, well, first we're going to go into our normal list review that we do every single episode. We're going to be talking about the new Easterling models that we have now seen. We're actually going to be talking about the Rings of Power Amazon series and our thoughts and just kind of maybe some photos and stuff that we've seen so far. And then we will be going into the FAQs, which happen every February and August. So let's go ahead and jump into it. A lot to talk about today. So Matt, what is our list today?
All right. So our list today is by, let's see, someone whose name is cut off at the top. I apologize for that, but we actually don't know who this list is by, but hopefully you'll recognize it when you hear it, because unfortunately we can't kind of plunge back in and figure out exactly where this came from.
Don't know which video this is either because Tim sent it.
Yeah, actually ideas for Middle Earth SPG. You can see it in the tab in the top.
All right. So this came in this is from the latest episode. So this listener writes, "Hi guys, first of all, he says we do a good job. Thanks very much. Then he says, I'm attending my first tournament in April and would love your thoughts on my list. But first, some information on the tournament. This is a 522-point tournament, which means probably Rainier designed it because he's afraid of normal numbers. And you have to have at least 4 models and 60 at most. So you get scenario pools consisting of 4 of the match play guide pools. The first is pool 1. That's the objective scenarios: domination, capture and control, and breakthrough. The second round, you get the Lords of Battle, Contest of Champions, and To the Death pools, which I think is the kill people pool. Then you have pool 3, which is, I think, the kind of weird scenario pools, and that's Storm the Camp, Reconnoiter, and Divide and Conquer. And then you have in the 4th round, pool 6, which is another set of the oddball scenarios: Fog of War, Clash by Moonlight, and Assassination. And they are doing the they're doing a veto system so that each round each player bans 1 mission from the scenario pool, and you play the one that is not banned. His army list is the Kingdom of Khazad-dûm, and with it he has Durin, King of Khazad-dûm. With him are 8 Hearthguard. Second warband is a dwarf king, and with that are an unspecified number of warriors with shield, but we can figure that out, I think, with math later on. And then 2 dwarf ballistas. So if we figure out the math, there's 10 dwarves not associated with ballistas. There are 4 dwarves that are associated with ballistas. So I think by process of elimination, that gives us 5 warriors with shield and dwarf king's warband. So he asked a question.
Butt in for a moment.
Yeah, sure.
I did some investigating. The name of this person is Lariada92, Lariada 92. Have no idea what that means, but that's the person.
Perfect. Credit has been given.
All right. So Lariada, this is your list. So this advice is coming to you. And he asked the questions: are 2 ballistas enough firepower to force the opponent to get to me? And do I have enough melee power to stand a chance in melee, even with such a low model count? Or should I cut a ballista and a king for the king's champion? So to answer those questions real quick, are 2 ballistas enough firepower to force an opponent to me? I think the answer is clearly yes. I think also the fact that you only have 19 models will be enough to bring your opponent to you. Do you have enough melee power to stand a chance in melee with such a low model count? I think the answer to that is no. You've got some tough heroes, you've got some tough warriors, but you've only got 19 of them, and I don't think that's necessarily going to do it, especially when 4 of them
are manning a ballista.
Yeah.
I mean, so quick thoughts. You need to figure out a way to up your model count. I don't think this is going to do it, especially if your first scenario out of the box is going to be an objective scenario. No matter which one you pick, I think 19 models is too low. I think at a minimum, you have to delete a dwarf ballista and throw some more dwarves in this mix. And they can be dwarves with bows if you want some more capability to bring people to you. But I think one dwarf ballista is enough to do that. I also question whether Durin and Hearthguard is really what you want at this points level. I think at this points level, you might be better off going with Balin and just more guys at this points level. But I'll open the floor with the observation that this is too few figures.
Yeah. All right. So I just want to butt in on a couple of things here before other people start talking about it. First off, there's a couple of miscalculations in this here. It says there are 6 heroes. There are 4 of them. It says there are 19 warriors, which I don't exactly understand what that means. But doing the math on my sheet where I do my list building, it comes out to 21 models, Durin 8 Hearthguard, Dwarf King 7 dwarves with shields, and then 2 ballistae, with obviously each one of them has 2 people. So just a quick correction on that. Maxing out the points, it's 21 models, still ludicrously small. And just to weigh in a little bit, I agree with a lot of things that Dad said. I think first off, is 2 dwarf ballistas able to bring the opponent to you? Yes. My question is whether or not you actually want the opponent to come to you, because once they get to you, they're going to destroy your entire army. So I definitely agree, drop 1 ballista and then beef out on numbers. I also agree that depending on how much you want Durin and the Hearthguard, it would probably make a better list if you took Balin instead. Because looking at, I just did up a list here.
That advice sounds familiar.
I got in a dwarf ballista, Balin, and a King's Champion, and then like 9 dwarf shieldmen, 7 Khazad guards, and 4 more dwarf shieldmen in that warband, and then a couple of bowmen, which comes out to 28 models. You get the 2 banners, which I think you definitely need banners in a dwarf list. So that's obviously another way you can do it, and I'd say it's the most optimal way. But I understand you don't necessarily want to make it the most optimal way, but I'd say drop the 1 ballista, try and fit a banner in there, get as many guys as you can, and maybe think about changing up your heroes to Balin and the King's Champion.
All right. So I imagine a lot of our opinions are going to mirror what Matt and Evan just said. So let's talk about real quick and we can obviously give more advice if Rob, Mick, if you do have more thoughts, but I'm just curious on what maybe everyone's thoughts are on the pool of scenarios. Is that altering any of your decision about, what to bring here? Or is it really not mattering and you just know, okay, cool, you're going in pretty random and Lords of Battle is probably never going to get chosen. Or maybe it will, I don't know. But any Horde army is going to take it out. But I'm personally, just to start that conversation off, not seeing any real impact other than if your final round is an assassination mission in Fog of War, your general on the hardest round of the tournament, ideally, if you're trying to go to win it, is not going to be relevant. You also have a situation of it. You could delete Clash by Moonlight anyway if you're worried about this, but the archers are probably going to be more prevalent as time goes on. I'm seeing Reconnoiter, Storm the Camp, Divide and Conquer. So this is a very fast moving mission. So I imagine in pool 3, this army is going to just auto lose against most armies that are designed for speed.
Well, I think it can probably draw Storm the Camp. because obviously you veto reconnoiter. No way you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then you're left with either storm the camp and divide and conquer. And he's only got essentially 2 war bands and a ballista, or 2. And then so you've got your 2 war bands that are just going to kind of both waddle to the middle and divide and conquer. And you can make them both. I think if you delete if you make some of the changes, you can make them fairly tough. So I think you got a chance in that. And if you get storm the camp, you just sit in your camp, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And take the draw.
So basically then, what about that final pool? I mean, his general's not going to be a target. He's got to hunt down this other target. Do we think the Dwarf King is strong enough to, because I imagine he's going to delete Clash by Moonlight, because that is the scenario that, like, you can punch through Dwarven armor.
Yeah. You don't want, right.
So you delete that one. You're probably going to get one of those too. So, is the Dwarf King a relevant pick? I think Evan suggested taking, did I hear it right? The King's Champion?
Yep.
Yeah, though with the caveat that you need March somewhere in your army, because otherwise you'll definitely auto lose in pool 3.
Well, how about
so
this?
I think,
how about instead of replacing the Dwarf King with the King's Champion, you replace Durin with the King's Champion. So you have King's Champion and Dwarf King, and then max out.
Then I sort of struggle to justify not taking Balin instead. I guess you get more models, but
I'm not actually sure that you do, because at
that
point you max out
King.
Yeah, at that point you max out your slots at 24.
Does Balin have March?
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
he does. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Then I think in that case,
right. I agree, because you're not losing anything, considering Balin changes your list to Moria, but I don't see a change.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's Balin and King's Champion.
So I think and that follows kind of that idea where you said banners are important. I think that's going to be definitely true, especially when we're dealing with, you're probably going to accelerate in pool 2 is my thought, depending on who you get, because the people who in pool 1 would typically win may not have strong generals. It's kind of a generalization, to be honest. A lot of Horde armies have great generals, but I mean, Lords of Battle you would keep. I imagine someone's going to veto it against him, and then he'd have Contest of Champions and to the death. So yeah, more hitting power with the banners you're going to definitely need. I think Balin King's Champion would help that out. And then if you have all those Dwarf Warriors with shields instead of Hearthguard, then not only are you getting more troops, but you're getting the ability to shield if you want to control just simply winning the fights and backing them off and giving them really low possibility of actually beating you or killing your models at all, while your heroes just go around and wreck everything. So that's my thought, though. I think pool 3 though is the problem. And then once it gets pulled, so now the King's Champion in this makeup that we just talked about, the King's Champion is now that person they got to target for Fog of War and for assassination.
Well, they can target heralds as well, and the Dwarf Ballista leaders as well.
Yeah, the siege veterans as well, right?
Another reason, by the way, to not take 2 Dwarf Ballistas, because 1 siege veteran you can probably protect. I'd be very impressed if you were able to protect 2 of them,
especially with this many troops.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, really, I mean, as sad as it sounds, he wants to play his Dwarf Ballistas, but his list isn't really catered to it enough, and the scenarios could hurt him trying to do that. So it's
two Dwarf Ballistas at 522 points is, I don't think, ever going to work.
Yeah. You almost get rid of both, and then, I mean, as far as the opponent coming to him, I mean, he's dwarves. I mean, they're gonna. I mean, I guess you shoot at him, but.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the opponent coming to him issue is, with this scenario draw, the only time you really need to worry about that is pool 2, if you end up with To the Death or Lords of Battle, because pool 1's going to be all about the objectives, regardless of whether people have to come to him or not. So is. I mean, pool 3, everybody's going to be marching someplace else anyway. And And pool 4 is, again, pool 4 is kind of going to be various objective based stuff that are either going to draw people towards objectives in Fog of War, or draw people towards particular figures in Assassination in Fog of War. So
yeah,
I wouldn't be fixated on that.
All right. Well, it sounds like to me like everyone's pretty much in agreement here. I think to sum it all up, basically the dwarf ballistas are not going to work. So if you're playing it for fun, then all of this advice is irrelevant. We are a competitive podcast, however, so we do recommend to remove the dwarf ballistas. Probably consider Balin instead, a cheaper option that can bring in more troops. Anyway, not more, but remove the Hearthguard and reduce cost. Dwarf King, change it out to a King's Champion. I mean, you're basically rewriting the list. We feel bad. But if you are going to keep it like this, remove at least one dwarf ballista, and you'll probably find that your games are going to be a lot easier to win. Does that about sum it all up?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's about right.
All right, perfect. Well, if anyone else wants to submit a list to us, go ahead and do so in the comment section of YouTube. If you are listening to this on Spotify, then get on YouTube and comment, I suppose. But now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into the next topic, which is Easterlings. We got a couple new drops. And actually, just to refresh my memory, Evan, what were the drops? What was revealed recently?
So for the Easterlings, I forget their names. I'm horrible with that sort of stuff, but let's see here. We've got
Rom knows.
Rutabi, and this is horrible. Let's see here. Borgir with a bunch of fancy letters on top of it. So there we are. So we didn't get a lot about their profiles.
Okay.
But Rob, if you want to sort of take us through what we do know.
Yeah, so it's kind of exciting. We had seen the silhouettes of these models before, but this is the first time that they've actually revealed the full glory of what they look like. And I apologize in advance if I'm a little raspy. I'm a little under the weather. But yeah, so we have now seen Rutabi, who is I believe the general of the Dragon Legion, which that might also be a bit of a stealth reveal for what the Easterling Legendary Legion might be called, I would imagine. And then Borgir the Conjurer, who is essentially a souped-up war priest. So going into them, first we have Rutabi, and I don't know if that's the right way to say it or not, if it's Rutabi or Rutabi, but we're just going to go with it.
Well, and, when she shows up in the middle of the night, yeah, that's right. So we had an autocorrect incident where this got corrected to Rutabaga.
So Rutabaga
name going forward.
Favorite snack of the Dragon Legion. So she is a direct subordinate of the Dragon Emperor himself. So she seems to be either kind of on the same level as, or right around, maybe even higher in the command structure than Omdur, except that they say whereas Omdur is more of a hero hunter, she's more of a leader of legions. And that's reflected in what we've been shown of her profile, which is actually quite meaty. So fight value 6, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, and 3 might, which is actually pretty outstanding. Now, we obviously don't know how much will or fate, if this is going to be a 3-1-1 situation or a 3-3-3 situation, but 3 attacks with 3 might at fight 6 is already pretty respectable for an army that basically doesn't have any heroes. And we also have found that she has the Master of Battle 3+ special rule, and a special rule called Show No Mercy, which allows her to reroll failed wound rolls against enemy models that are trapped. So that's actually pretty interesting. I would imagine because the model has not been shown with a horse that she will not be able to be mounted. So this is the kind of model that you're going to have embedded within the phalanx of your Easterling pikes. And having Master of Battle is really quite interesting. The Show No Mercy special rule is a little bit more niche, but now that you can ally bat swarms in with Easterlings through the other profiles that we have talked about that might be, a little bit easier to do. And then Borgir, when I get to him, he's got a few tricks that might help with that as well. But overall, we still don't know points cost. Obviously, we don't know heroic actions, but assuming it's a reasonably pointed hero that has the usual heroic actions you'd expect from a combat character like Strike, it's a welcome addition to the Easterling range. I mean, going from Amdur and Captains to Umdur and Rutabaga automatically is an upgrade. So I don't know if anybody else has any more thoughts on her, but I certainly imagine that she will, almost by default, find her way into a lot of Easterling legions just to add another character that is, named a little meatier than a Dragon Knight and on the level of an Amdur that can fight and kill stuff. So
I will say, good.
I was just going to say that knowing what I know of GW, her heroic actions are probably going to be heroic challenge and heroic strength.
Oh God,
because it's an Easterling hero.
Strength.
Yeah,
no, if she doesn't have strike, that'll be a catastrophe.
But it'll be also par for the course. So,
assuming she doesn't cost 250 points and only has heroic challenge,
she'll cost 250 points. Don't worry.
But you know what? As an Easterling player, you're going to take her anyway, and you're going to like it. Model wise, I actually think she's really cool. It's a very kind of stoic pose that's going to look really nice embedded within.
Wait, did they say it's a she?
It's a she.
It's a she.
Oh, it's a female. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right.
It's a female. She kind of gives me like Mulan vibes, which is kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
And she's
hard to tell under the helmet, though. I don't know.
Sure. But yeah, they definitely say that it is a she, which is pretty cool.
Well, then props
I know a lot of people.
They're not going the usual gamer route and modeling armor in a female.
Oh god, geez, yeah, the boob armor,
the boob plate.
I am very glad that looking at this model, I could not actually tell this was a woman.
But you know what? Could you even imagine what Easterling boob plate would look like with all the spikiness? That would be terrifying. So, but yeah, it's a great model. I'm very excited about picking it up and painting it. It's just, there's nothing super spectacular about it, but I think that works really well because of what she is. It's just like a line phalanx infantry commander. And I certainly look forward to, seeing her double the amount of named heroes you can take as an Easterling. Well, I guess Camille. But
I think Rainier, you've played Easterlings before, right? Like with Khan, do you think she might be an option for that?
I think what she replaces is she replaces the captains, and she's in there more for like the heroic moves and the late game. With Maelstrom of Battle, that's what I kind of see her as, like, ooh, maybe you can stop all cavalry charges because now she has the chance to get the heroic move off for free and stuff like that. So I do see her as like replacing captains because she will be in a phalanx line. I would still, depending on her points, if I would bring her with Khan, because I still do think the phalanx with Khan, Cav, and chariots is doable and pretty good, especially if you bring a drum. Yeah, I think I'd take her. Yeah, I think the fight 6-2 is very much of like a sneaky, like I can throw you in there, shield, make a mega hero, like just stop them from doing anything, force someone like the likes of Eomer or Fight 5 heroic strike up, and so forth. So even if she doesn't get heroic strike, I don't think it would be the worst, if that makes sense.
Though with Master in Battle, even if she doesn't have it naturally, she could theoretically get it against someone that uses it against her, which is not nothing. So
yeah, and
be nice to have somebody
pointed out that it's a 3-up, not a 4-up, which we've never seen before. So it's 66% of the time.
That's pretty reliable. Yeah, that's pretty reliable.
That makes it kind of like, yeah, she looks beefy, but what she's going to do as a general and like for the force, not a general, but like what she's going to do as a hero for your army itself, which plays again to the Easterling strengths, positioning. That's like the one key thing that we always talk about when it comes to Easterlings. She makes that even better. And I think that's going to be really good for the army.
Yeah, she makes the front of the phalanx have some punch that it otherwise lacked. Yeah, I was going to say that her Master of Battle is 33% better than the ones that we've seen before, but then I was like, oh wait,
It's not how that works.
Mick's gonna tell me I'm wrong. Or Evan's gonna tell me I'm wrong.
16% better than 4+.
Look, 66% of the time it works every time.
Exactly.
Right. I still don't know how like 1/3 better changes to 16%, but going from
that's not how that works.
Yeah, it's going from 3 chances to do it to 4
Evan
chances.
just got out of high school. He knows more about math. And that's not sarcasm.
Supposedly passed high school math. What is going on?
We all know that Americans stop learning math after high school. You're done.
It's not a comparison to the chance that it's a comparison. Never mind. All right.
No, but I mean, just talking about real quick, one more thing about this before we get to the next person. Fight 6 on an evil hero. I mean, so far it looks like they're all Easterlings. Am I incorrect? Now, Compel can get to fight 6, but Amder.
Compel is an Easterling.
Now this one. Ooh. So it's actually kind of cool. I'm liking that trend. The fact that you're seeing fight 6 kind of come across this army. If she does not have heroic strike, that will be unfortunate because you'll basically be sending her hunting around like lower level heroes. That's what I'm seeing. Now, I will say the fact that she has 3 wounds, to me, it means the sign of like a high tier hero, because that's actually kind of surprising. We've seen very consistently when we've seen the other releases that have gone so far, heroes like this normally should have 2 wounds and be 3/1/1. I would not be shocked to see a 3/3/3 across the Might Will Fate, given that she has 3 wounds, because that's oftentimes the kind of trend. The fact that she's not mounted, I think the fact that, that whole little trap shenanigan that she does, I guess, is how she would actually kill her targets. And I guess we'll talk a little bit about that a little later on how she would pull that trapping off. But yeah, no, I just wanted to note that the fight 6, I was like, oh wow, that's nice that Evil's getting that.
Well, and also
a huge difference too. Oh, sorry, but it does because I play Amber all the time, and it's like fell beasts are terrified of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the whole, and then even elves too. Like she can heroic combat her way through an elf battle line. That is like amazing. Like you don't typically see that unless you have Aragorn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
now, depending on what happens, she might actually be our first fight 6, 3 attack, 3 wound, 3 might, 3 will, 3 fate evil hero, because I don't think there's another one besides
fight 6.
besides the dragon. But with fight 6 and over,
everyone has one,
which will definitely be interesting. It depends if she dies in the GW lore or not, because if she dies, then she'll have 1 fate.
Well, I wonder anyways. The argument for 3 fate is that the Easterlings gave the dwarves and the Men of Dale a big spanking, and they only really fled once they realized the war in the South had been lost. So they shouldn't. I don't know, for lore's sake, I think they should keep her 3. Yeah.
Although
I agree with that. Yeah,
I will say this: she's likely to be defense 7, going up to defense 8 in. Well, actually, it depends if they give her shield wall or not. So yeah, maybe you would have a 3 might or 3 wound, 3 fate defense 7 hero. I was wondering if there's some mechanism to get her up to defense 8, in which case
giving her shield wall would be pointless because no one else would have it.
Yeah, that's right.
Unless there is a legendary legion which gives everybody shield wall.
That's
right. Exactly.
But you know what, Matt? That's I was going to say that too. The fact that she has a shield and she's almost certainly going to be at least defense 7, right? Just based on comparative profiles. Like even if she doesn't have 3 fate, which she very well may, even if she doesn't have strike, if they want her to be kind of like a line commander, she might have defense, right? But at fight 6, even fight 6 heroes have to strike against her. She might copy it, 66% of the time. She can shield to get a whole bunch of attacks. So like she's going to be, if nothing else, I think she's going to be quite durable. And that in and of itself is pretty valuable. Whether or not she can get to defense 8. And she might also have like 2 fate, right? Like a Faramir or something where it's like, you're not quite 3 fate level, but you're more than a 1 fater. Either way, it's interesting.
You don't need heroic march for sure if you have the drum with like the Easterlings too.
Which you do. Let's be real. So
yeah. Like so you have the drum, so like even she can like get in places fast.
Actually, it's the drum itself that makes me feel like the captains are going to become irrelevant once enough heroes come out. The named characters, I think the captains are going to be obscure.
Yeah, I think so
especially
too.
Master of Battle on a 3+, it's and that shield too. That shield.
Well, and if you have kind of the hammer and anvil going with Amdur riding around killing people and her holding the phalanx together, and with Master of Battle really kind of causing a huge problem for the opponent in the battle line, I think that 1-2 punch will already be a huge boon to Easterling armies.
Yeah, could you imagine her Amdur and Camul? Like, oh my god.
Yeah. Right.
Like, although I don't think you're going to see them in the Legion, right? Because Amdur was down south. I don't know where they're going to put Camul, because I think in the lore, Camul was in the
Pelennor.
Yeah, Camul is at the Pelennor by the point.
So he shouldn't in any Legion they make, unless they're making like some pre-Battle of Dale Legion, they shouldn't be together.
Yeah, Camul should be down south with Amdur. She should be up north with the Dragon Emperor, who I assume now for sure is the other silhouette we've seen.
I had actually thought Camul was at Dol Guldur, but
he got recalled from Dol Guldur to go fight at the Pelennor, if I remember correctly.
Okay,
but I mean, I'm sure some huge Tolkien scholarly type will correct me, but I'm pretty sure Camul was not at the Battle of Dale for sure. So
I agree with that. So
anyway,
plus we have the mysterious Dragon King that's still lurking somewhere that is yet to be seen.
Right. So
we have another hero to talk about.
We do. That's Rutabi. I think that she will be very popular, and I'm quite excited about her. So the next hero that we have now had confirmed is Darth Vader. I'm sorry, Borgir, who is he is actually, what is his official title? The Conjurer, Borgir the Conjurer. And so as you would imagine, he is essentially a souped up Easterling war priest.
Does party tricks.
Yeah, right. Again, based on the fact that we just see him on foot. I mean, I guess they could release more and they could be holding it back, but I assume he's not going to be able to be mounted like the regular war priest, just based on what we've seen. But he... Go ahead.
Based on aesthetic, I think the only one that is more legally blind than him is the Mouth of Sauron. Because look at his helmet, and then he has 2 blinders on the side with that big back plate. It's like, can he even see anything?
No, actually, I think that's the point.
He uses the Force.
I think that's the point, is to make him like the Mouth of Sauron. He learned a dark power that just, whatever the Mouth of Sauron, for some reason, he doesn't need to see through his helmet. He sees in a different way, maybe the same way Ringwraiths see. I don't know.
Sonar.
He's doing the same thing. Whatever that is, I think they actually wanted to blind him. I think that's exactly what the look they were going for.
That'd be cool. And it goes kind of along with the lore too, if you think about it, because the Easterlings did worship Sauron. Yeah, and they were really big into the arts and stuff. Yeah, but I do like the lightsaber, and he looks like Darth Vader.
Yeah, he looks awesome. Or maybe it's like a dark helmet situation from Spaceballs, where that was actually above his head. He went like this too fast, and it fell over his eyes, and they just the snapshot. But in any case,
doesn't have Compel, I'm going to be so upset. Look at that. That is such a Compel thing.
Compel. I want him to have Radagast's "I see the whole battlefield" rule, because clearly he doesn't need eyes to see where he's going.
Unfortunately, he's going to have neither of those things. So let's go into the profile.
Yes, that is a responsible choice, Evan. So he has Blade Wrath and Fury, like all war priests. We already know that. However, he has access to 2 other magical powers that his underlings cannot manifest: Enchanted Blades and Tremor. As Master of Dark Magics, Borgir has plenty of will at his disposal, 5 points. And his Sorcerer's Adept special rule means that if he rolls a natural 6 when casting, it's essentially free. So he's got the resisting rule, but for his casting, which is pretty cool.
Wait. Is it like he gets all his dice back, or just the one?
He regains the point of will that he spent. So like each 6 gets the will back.
Okay, right? I'm about to say just roll 5, go for it. Just
every time. Every time. No,
because it's you do that with the Elven ones.
Yeah.
The broken Stormcallers. Yeah.
I totally forgot about them, because I've always hated those.
Yeah, they were great. They were like my favorite thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Then they destroyed them.
Well, so I I don't know off the top of my head, but most named like shaman level characters are usually like 251 or 252, right? In terms of stat
They're
line.
131 most.
131 as well.
Well,
Yeah.
but named shamans are usually
yeah.
like
Are there any
252,
named
right?
Ashrak, Drew's Hag.
Well,
Yeah, there are.
Musker, right? That just
Yeah.
came out, right?
Yeah.
No,
252.
not Kamul, Kardouche. Sorry.
Kardouche, yeah. So basically, I expect him to have probably 2 points of might, and the 5 will is confirmed, and some number of fate between 1 and 3. But the big thing is that he keeps the Blade Wrath and Fury. Blade Wrath obviously is really good to turbocharge your heroes, but brings Enchanted Blades and Tremor. Tremor is a very annoying spell and will pair very nicely with, Rutabi's if you're on the ground, I extra curb stomp you rule when you can get it off. A lot of this will also depend on how easy these things are to cast for him, right? We don't know what his casting numbers are.
If it's a 5-up, then you're barely going to use it.
Yeah, if it's a 5-up, then you basically are fishing for 6s anyway at that point, right? Because if it goes off, it's free, more or less. But Enchanted Blades is definitely interesting. If you pair it with another War Priest and get Blade Wrath and Enchanted Blades on someone, they're definitely gonna make some sushi out of whatever they're fighting.
High point game because you have like invested in 2 like shamans.
Yeah,
that better be a very high point game.
Which you probably at that point, if you're taking him, you're already taking Rutabi and probably Amdur, maybe Kamul, depending on how you're playing. So you're absolutely right that unless there's some list someone figures out to break with multiple War Priests, I don't think you're going to see that combo often. But theoretically, you can make a very choppy Easterling hero. Yeah, so it's a War Priest that is slightly more juiced. I don't hate it. I think it's probably not quite as impactful as Rutabi is going to be for the list, but it's certainly a nice option to have. And all jokes aside, he does look really cool. Like it's a very this is the most evil looking model that they have released in a very long time, and so I don't hate that at all. But anyway, what are you guys thoughts?
The aesthetic looks great. I know. I warned my wife the other day. I was like, that supplement that I've been waiting for the past 10 years, and she was like, yeah, and I'm like, they're finally coming out with it. The Easterlings have arrived, so it's like there goes my savings. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think
it's kind of how I felt with Dale, right? Where they dropped the Dale, and I was like, okay, bye retirement.
yeah. These the Easterlings for me is that, and not everybody likes the whole aesthetic, but I think it's amazing, and I'm so excited.
I love it. I agree with you.
Yeah, because they literally have dragon scales. They have dragon wings on their helmet. It's so cool. But yeah, I think playstyle wise, I don't think I'd use him because of the tremor. You typically see it with the Moria Shamans, and they bring 2 to 3 is what I see Devin play, and what I see someone from my group, a guy named Alistair, play.
Well, they were also 50 points.
Exactly. So 100 points for 2 tremors is really discounted and really scary. I think for him, it's it's an upgraded War Priest. You can do a little more things, but you're paying for those more things. And I just don't really see him. I don't know, for me personally, but I don't know.
It really is going to depend.
They've been talking about the new king coming out, the Emperor. What was that?
Well, the point cost is because going off your comment where you're like, yeah, you are paying for those upgrades. Tremor, it's if you're casting Fury, then Tremor's probably not where you want him. Usually to cast Tremor, you need him to be in the front line. So it's okay, it's kind of a conflict of goals there. And then if it is a high cast cost, which normally it is 5-up or something like that, then it's how often you use it. So it's you're really paying for just the Blade Wrath and the Fury. And then if you compare Enchanted Blades and Blade Wrath, Strength 6 will reroll what? Is it reroll all fails? So realistically, the way it sounds to me is you're looking for an opportunity to cast a channeled spell twice. I guess with this guy is really what you're paying for.
I feel like the problem too is he's the jack of all trades that you're not going to really need because all the other heroes are going to fulfill those rules. Yeah. So it's cool, but it is again, what you said, Devin, it's not really
either replaces the Easterling War Priest because he's too cheap, or you just bring the Easterling War Priest because he's not bringing enough to the table,
right?
Based on what we're seeing here. So unfortunately, I'm not sure if he's in a good place as well. I got to agree with Brady.
He may also be a Legion selection, right? That he's the guy who's in the Legion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that might be
bring
true if
something
the
to
Legion
Warpaths
allows
like
us to
add
build
And he might be like a hero of valor or something, because the regular priest is fortitude, right? If they want him to be higher than the other priests.
that's
so
true.
that might be interesting. Now,
Yeah.
there could be something crazy that we can't tell from the article, like that his tremor goes off on like a 3+ or something, and then you could get it 5 times, and that's a little more interesting, right?
or even a 4.
Yeah.
Even a 4, he would be absolutely busted if he could
So.
tremor on a 4-up, because you
with 2 points
you
of might
cast
too.
it like 3 or 4 times a game.
Well, and some of those times
especially
you're
with
going to
the
get it
might
back.
points.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The will. So yeah. So like if something crazy like that is hidden underneath the article paywall, so to speak, then that might change my opinion. But otherwise, I agree with you, Rainier, that it's kind of a nice for fun, fluffy, casual games. Probably not a go-to for really competitive lists.
We shall see.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are the 2 new Easterling profiles that should be coming out relatively soon, because the last 2 orcs came out very shortly after they were previewed. So be on the lookout for that.
All right. So now we're going into the Amazon series, or at least the limited amount of information what we know. We can give it about 10 minutes on that. I mean, what do we know at this point? Because I will admit I have been in the dark about the news.
All right. So for Rings of Power, what we know is that Galadriel is going swimming.
All right. I'm already want to watch the film. So.
Yeah, that's right. And we know that there's a new figure that's going to be coming out, because we've already got her GW name and title here, which if you look in the lower left-hand corner here, this is Galadriel, Commander of the Northern Armies, which if that is not a figure preview, I don't know what is.
God,
anyway,
I hope you're right. And I hope she gets a horse, because Celeborn doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just some things that are, I mean, for those who have been living under a rock.
I just want to butt in here. I'm just imagining, you know how people are talking about combining the Lady of Light and the other profile? Just imagine all 3 of these profiles combined together. Just like,
that's right.
Heavy
Except
armor,
it would be a minor hero.
Fortify spirit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see GW saying, well, look, we dropped her down to a hero of fortitude. More on that later, but we need to ramp her up again. What do? I know. Heavy armor and an elven blade.
Right.
And that's the solution for this. But okay, so for those who are living under a rock, and by this we mean Devin, there is an Amazon series set in the Second Age called The Rings of Power. It will be premiering in September. We are recording this the day before the Super Bowl, and that is the day when the first trailer is going to come out. But we did get a teaser title trailer where the new younger Galadriel, who is played by, I'm trying to see if I can get her name here, but I believe Morfydd Clark, who is very Welsh, played by Morfydd Clark, basically does kind of the Galadriel introduction from the beginning of the first Lords of the Ring movie, just talking about the 9 rings. So it's kind of fun to hear her talk through that again, to see it coming back. And then we've also had a bunch of pictures that were released, of which these are 2. It looks to be really interesting. It looks to be really fun. Some of the pictures we have released, in addition to Galadriel in heavy armor with sword, we also have, welcome back to Middle Earth. Yeah, okay.
Skip the paywall.
Yeah, we hit the
Bro,
paywall.
he's on this website a lot.
Yeah, but we also have a couple of new additions. We have Durin, who's going to be in the series.
Cool.
Oh, is that Durin? It's
Durin the 4th, actually, who is the one who and I looked up some of the lore on this. Durin the 4th led the dwarf. He was the king of Khazad-dûm. He led the dwarves and the Northerners, who are the progenitors of what became
the Woodsman.
What became the Woodsman, what became Dale, what became
Rohan.
Yeah, Rohan. Basically,
the Rovanian, basically.
Yeah, the men of Rovanian. So he led them and dwarves against a mighty Easterling horde in the north, lost, and then regrouped and fought again at the battle we all know where Sauron was eventually defeated. So be fun to see what his storyline is. We've got the middle character here who is a dwarf queen, which will be an interesting ad. And then we have a new elvish character on the right. And then there's some other kind of
more swimming.
Yeah, more swimming. Galadriel apparently likes the water. And we also have Elrond, and this is young Elrond.
Very young.
Yeah, very young. And has quite the chin, by the way. I actually think they did. Morfydd Clark, I think, was a good casting job for Galadriel. When you kind of like see pictures of her in Galadriel get up next to, the classic Galadriel that we all know, it's easy to see the resemblance there. I think less so with Elrond.
Yeah, I'm not sold on this picture.
For a lot of people, it's apparently the hair, that his hair is too short.
Yeah, his hair is also the wrong color, right?
Yeah.
It's brown instead of black. This is Elrond and Galadriel together here, and here you can really get a good glimpse of his chin. But anyway, we'll keep an eye out for it. It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see if kind of GW gets the rights for this. I would assume they're at least trying to. Whether or not they can or not, we'll see, because
it might come down to cost too, right? Like how expensive the license is, which is
all
astronomical, I imagine.
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I did see an article. Interestingly enough, the overall rights holder is now auctioning off the rights to all of Tolkien's estate. And by that, I don't mean New Line. I hadn't realized it, but New Line actually has a sub license. Tolkien sold to a company whose name I can't remember, but it's
the Solzines company.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like the joke from 30 Rock. It's like the Schlumberger Shoe Company, which owns all the rights at the top of the pyramid, and they're the one who's been licensing, sub-licensing it to everybody, and they are up for sale now for, I think the original asking price is $2 billion.
Worth it.
Yeah, well, I mean, but there's a very limited number of entities that can make a $2 billion purchase, and I guess Amazon is at the front of the queue. So we'll see. Kind of.
I'm going to have to call my accountants to see if I can swing that this week.
Right.
But
so is GW, by the way. I mean, I assume they're. What I don't know is whether their current license agreement basically has an assignment clause. So even if the ultimate top of the line rights get sold, it doesn't affect the license that they already have, or whether they're going to need to essentially rebid. But in any case, you're right. This is going to come down to money. But I would assume there's a lot of money on the table for the official miniatures game for the most expensive television series ever made. So. Cross our fingers.
Do you think that if
I'm kind of excited?
Do you think if we had more viewers, YouTube would be able to sponsor us for buying the license?
Yeah, I think we have all six viewers. Oh shoot, all six viewers are right here. Yeah. What do you guys think? You think we can afford it?
You know what? If they supported our Patreon, and
we have a Patreon.
Told all their friends and family to subscribe. I think 10,000 subscribers is really all you need.
Global
movement. You can buy it.
So we learned something today. Devin has set up a Patreon and has pocketed all the proceeds and told none of us.
Yeah. If we
that
got
said,
one,
the swords look so cool. The little picture, the pictures that they did show of the swords, and I feel like in Tolkien's lore and even in Lord of the Rings trilogy, the swords made the culture come alive. They made the different realms, the different kingdoms come alive and characters. So I do like that touch, while also they look different. So I'm pretty excited, because the elven swords of the Second Age were legendary.
Yeah. I'm super excited to see. So the one thing they said in the article is that for obvious reasons, they're compressing the history so we can see all of the highlights of the Second Age, all the way from Forging of the Rings, War of the Elves and Sauron, Fall of Numenor, Last Alliance. And And I'm super excited to see that. And I'm even more excited to see that now because those pictures have a unique identity, but at the same time, they're like visually close enough to the Peter Jackson kind of movies that they really do feel like a continuity in a way that is not just a copy. It's still unique, but it definitely, you could see how over thousands of years it would evolve to that. And so I'm very excited about that. And hopefully, you know, we do get some cool minis out of that.
By the way, have you guys seen the actual teaser that dropped like a week and a half ago, where they're sort of like showing the actual title and stuff?
Yeah, because
like the most amazing thing is that was actually all done with practical effects. That wasn't CGI. That was actually gold that was melted and filmed in slow motion, and then water poured all over it. And that was just one of those things which kind of gave me the feeling that like they really care about actually making this into like a real sort of series where they're not going to be using as much CGI. They're going to be trying to make it as realistic and as like kind of almost you can touch all these objects yourself, and like all the actors might be able to actually interact with all these things themselves, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I love that. No wonder it's so expensive, though, if they're using liquid gold for the logo.
I mean,
right?
It's like.
And by the way, to give you a sense of scale, we don't actually know the budget, but just from what the government of New Zealand has released, which is just a portion of it, the amount that's being spent is $468 million. And so, you know, when you add in all the stuff we don't know about, this is well over $500 million.
So I heard
that's only the first
season,
too,
right? It was
right?
supposed to be $1 billion.
Yeah, wasn't it like multiple billions of dollars, like $1 to $2 billion or something like
so
that?
I think the license cost
budget.
$1 to $2 billion, and then the show itself is like $500 million just for the first season, and there's 5 seasons, right?
Exactly.
So by math, which Devin may or may not know, how much is that, Devin? I'm just kidding.
I'm already out of.
It's going to be billions.
I think the problem is Dad. I don't think he knows how to do that. What's 500,000 times 5?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how 4 is only 16% more than.
All right,
3.
moving on. Anyways,
Well, actually,
You know, I also
never mind.
I really like the dwarves too, and I'm really excited to see like dwarven culture at its height. Because in the movies, we only just got like individual nomadic dwarves, basically. So I'm excited to see like full on Khazad Dûm.
Yeah, I'm also really excited to see a Balrog, but that may be the wrong time period. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I think so.
Second
but
age?
who knows?
No, first stage is where the Balrogs started showing up all over the place.
Yeah, but when did the Balrog destroy Khazad Dûm?
It was after during the 4th, because it was after the last Lions.
Yeah, it would have been in third age. Yeah, it would all been third age.
Yeah,
but we also don't know where they're going to end, right? Or if there's going to be a follow-up series if this is a hit that deals with the third age, and you know, we'll see.
Ooh, Angmar.
I'm excited to see Numenor. Like that's what I'm like way excited to see, like the island of Numenor, and just the inspiration, because they did inspire so much of what we know now of the western part of Middle Earth's culture. So I'm really excited to see that. And Sauron too, I wonder.
Well, Sauron's going to be
like fair Sauron, right? Like
he's going to be like a man. Yeah, he's just a normal.
Yeah, like the whole manipulative, how he manipulates Numenor. That's what I'm like really excited about, and to see the political division, because Tolkien even like painted a cool picture of how divided Numenor was. I think it was divided in 5 different sections. Each one ruled from a different like house, and they're all divided. Some worshipped him, some didn't.
I just want to see like the men sail across Numenor's ocean to go fight gods. I think that's
and then a huge tsunami comes and just
right. I just want to see who had the balls to say it and the idiots who followed. And they're like, you're right.
Yeah. Here's the thing, because history wrote it wrong. The thing is, Elendil and Isildur went to fight the gods, but they went the wrong direction. And then once they made it to Middle Earth, they're like, yeah, we were loyal. Like, they just didn't get the memo. They went the wrong way.
They didn't get the memo. They got to Middle Earth. They're like, wait, the uprising was today? Crap. Well,
I'm just
Devin, you are in luck.
They arrived and they thought that they were fighting the gods, and that everybody's there was actually like, the Valar and stuff like that. And they just, for the entirety of their existence, they're like, oh yeah, these are the Valar. Good to see you.
Yeah, they say giant holy fonts. I'm like, oh, there's the Valar. That's fine.
Well, Devin, the Númenorian king who had, as you put it, the balls to go sail across the world to fight the gods was Ar-Pharazôn, and he's already been cast as a character. So you probably will get to see him. Unfortunately, if they stay true to the works, they arrive in, the Valar's homeland and then see nothing and die in a cave and are to this day like bones in a cave. A lot less climatic than anything else.
Unfortunately, they'll probably make it a pretty short scene. But who knows? Maybe they'll break from the original lore, but I imagine.
But we've already, they've cast Isildur, they've cast Elendil, so we definitely are going to see all of that.
Though, because I think they'll breach because they have one character that's like a castaway in the Undying Lands. You know what I mean?
Oh, Halbrand, which so he was one of the ones shown in the picture, and they didn't say this in the article, but later they confirmed on the Amazon Twitter or whatever that he actually plays the one holding the horse sword, the one like where it's like the lameral armor and the sword with the horse pommel. So he might end up being like some tie-in to the Rohirrim or the Rovanian or something, which would be cool.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm excited.
Did anything else happen in the Middle Earth world? We've already kind of talked about a lot of stuff. Oh, right. There were FAQs.
The whole metagame is turned on its head now.
Yeah.
All right. So tell me how my vanquishers are no longer going to win every tournament.
All right. So,
do you think GW had all the information about Galadriel coming out as the Commander of the North just before they announced the changes in the FAQ?
No, I honestly think it had nothing to do with.
No.
I really think it was the fact that over in Britain, she's taken in like every good army list. And they just wanted to, I don't know, I suppose creatively solve the problem, but
I'm sure we're all going to have thoughts and feelings about that.
Strong feelings.
Yeah. I'm just taking a lot of shooting evil armies now.
All right, shall we? So let's start. Let's pitch right into the armies of the Hobbit. And so anyway, for those other people who've been living under a different set of rocks, a new set of FAQs dropped about a week and a half ago, and we're going to talk about them now. So as is our wont, we are going to just talk about the pink stuff. So we have the designer's commentary first for the armies of the Hobbit. The first one, as we scroll down that we get to, is if the Goblin King is set ablaze as a result of the channeled version of the Flame Burst magical power, will he still get to use his Blubbery Mass special rule? The answer is not against the initial Strength 9 hit, as this was caused by a magical power. However, Blubbery Mass can still be used against the wounds inflicted by the Strength 5 hit at the end of each turn. Okay.
I would never stop, drop, and roll then. I'd just let him keep taking the hits, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Well, yeah. And I guess this FAQ is specific to this particular way to get set ablaze. And if you get set ablaze any other way, like getting breathed on by a dragon or whatever, Blubbery Mass
saves all the hits.
Works.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like how being fat just saves you from, burning alive. Like it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean,
because the fat is frying, so like it's protecting you obviously from everything else, right?
You're just covering yourself in bacon. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I mean, we have learned. I mean, it's been a constant theme of this podcast that if there's one way to get an advantage out of GW, it's to be fat.
Yeah,
and if there's another way, it's to have another weapon in your other hand.
And you don't move any slower for being a fatter guy. Like you just, same pace as everyone else.
But you move slower for being older. Yeah, you do not want to be old in the GW world.
Unless you're an archer and then you shoot better.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it depends because like elves are old.
Yeah, I suppose.
Someone needs to model a deep fried chicken finger goblin king who's just been set on fire and the fat all fried.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm so sick of Goblin Town that I might just deep fry Goblin Kings on the table from now on.
Ooh, plastic frying. Okay, so the next one. Question: when a warbat uses its pluck special rule, if it fails the roll to inflict a strength 4 hit on its target, does it still get to roll to see if its target is knocked prone? Yes.
I've always played it like that.
I was going to say,
I don't understand why that was a question. Yeah. Like, it was very clear in the rules that that's how it happened, but I guess
now it's even clearer in the FAQs. All right, scrolling down to the errata. Let's see what we have here. Oh, here's one. I'm not sure how relevant this is. Galadriel, Lady of Light. Change Galadriel, Lady of Light's heroic tier to Hero of Fortitude.
Yeah, move on.
Is that significant in any way?
There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Doesn't really affect me.
Yeah.
I don't think any meta across the globe, nobody really uses her anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
She's overcosted and doesn't bring enough to the table. So
yeah,
she's the jack of no trades.
Now, if she was a commander of the Northern Armies, maybe, but you know.
So should be a legend.
Despite everything that everyone just said, this is like the one. Well, this and one other that we're going to talk about in a moment are like the one FAQ/errata change in here that everybody is talking about. Galadriel, Lady of Light, is no longer an auto include in any good army. If you want to include her in another good army that isn't, I guess, Rivendell, then she needs to be escorted either by a Saruman or a Glorfindel or somebody else from.
Of course, you're not going to do.
Well, I mean, conceivably you could, but
2 heroes who don't lead, factoring in at what, over 300 points?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to see it all the time, but conceivably it could be done. But yeah, so goodbye, Galadriel, Lady of Light. It was fun while it lasted.
I do have a question though. Do you guys think you'll still see her? I think you'll still see her. Of course, not as common, but I still think we'll see her being played
in Rivendell for sure.
Right,
but that penalty to bring her in of 2 heroes, the only way I could see bringing her in is like you have a horde army that doesn't need their, like, they already have plenty of troops without them being included. But I mean, you'd have to probably bring you wouldn't bring a bare bones Glorfindel. I mean, that's the cheapest hero of valor in there, right?
Yeah.
I think Celeborn bare bones is cheaper, but who would bring an unarmored Celeborn, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think Glorfindel, Galadriel, Lady of Light combination is bad by any means. I mean, I could see throwing them in with like an Army of Lake Town horde or something like that.
Yeah, something like, but it would have to, like I said, be some sort of horde army that doesn't need their assistance with the numbers, because you're already committing 300 points. It's got to be like an 800 plus point game for you to feel like you could confidently do that.
Yeah. It's just some other list that's going to provide you the numbers where Galadriel, Lady of Light, and Glorfindel are going to provide you with the killing power.
Yeah, but wasn't the whole point of Galadriel to protect you from bowfire and then protect your heroes? And like, if you're bringing a horde like Lake Town, like you're fine with bowfire, you don't need her.
Well, if you're bringing Glorfindel, he's already fortified. So
he's already fortified. That's a fair point. Yeah.
So it really,
and at that point, just bring Círdan for blinding light if you're playing Rivendell.
No, if you've got fortified
with with Army of Lake Town, like take Círdan as well, because their courage 2 and the Aura of Command would be so useful there.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't really think you're really going to ever see her again outside of the Vanquisher's Legion and maybe like weird lists at 1,000 points.
And at the same time, you're not really going to see the Vanquisher's Legion.
I was going to say, but will you see the Vanquisher's Legion?
I mean, realistically, what do we think the impact here on the meta? I mean, what armies get stronger just strictly from this? They're not seeing her anymore. I mean,
everything evil.
Yeah, the entire game becomes more fun.
I think you see Harad become more dangerous. You see Corsairs become more dangerous. Especially with this new format, I'm seeing a lot actually in the States too, where you're doing good v evil. Like the heavy shooting armies, really, when it was a good v evil tournament, were like, oh shoot, how am I going to deal with Galadriel? Now it's going to be like, ooh, like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to unbalance the game too much, but it does, I think we'd all agree, give that slight edge to those evil shooting armies, especially in good v evil.
Well, I also think evil magic armies like Angmar too are going to be really happy, right?
Wraiths are back. I mean, it's now that Wraiths can black dart people off of horses and don't have to fear Galadriel, Lady of Light anymore. That's a thing now.
Does this increase the popularity of Gandalf, the white?
I don't see how it does.
Yes.
I mean, by de facto,
He just became a much better choice in Minas Tirith now that you can't just ally in Galadriel, Lady of Light, and not care about the army bonus. So I think he's going to be a lot bigger. I think Gandalf the Grey might be a little bigger because he sort of has the same niche, a similar niche rather, of Galadriel, Lady of Light.
He lacks the fortify spirit though.
That's
but
the
he
main
is
thing
the
about
protection
white.
of the valor, which sort of does
works
a similar
works
thing.
once.
Yeah, but that's obviously not reliable at all. So talking about the US meta specifically, at the most recent, I think the most recent tournament we reviewed, which was last year, I forget what it was called, but it was sort of a Nova replacement. And looking at the lists from that, I think it was something ludicrous like 80% evil and 20% good. And there were no Lady of Lights there, mainly because I think people just weren't prepared for how the meta would be. And if we look at the winning armies of that, I believe first place was Moria with 2 Shatter Shamans, which obviously Galadriel, Lady of Light, would help counter that. Second place was Angmar, which we all know how that would go. Third place was Mordor with the Spider Queen. Same thing, she'd be able to shut down the Wraiths. There were 2 Wraiths in that list. And then I think fourth place was another Angmar list. So you already see those very powerful evil magic armies doing exceedingly well. And now you've basically just taken away their biggest counter. And I think evil's dominance in the US meta isn't going to be changing anytime soon. And I think similar things will be happening in places like Germany and Poland. I know they played a lot of Galadriel, Lady of Light over there, especially Germany, which played good versus evil. And Lady of Light was like their main counter to all of the Wraiths and the Corsairs and stuff that they take over there. And now I think that's going to be a very skewed metagame. So I guess I'm a little concerned about how the meta is going to go at this point. Like, I think it's going to be very, very evil centric. And who knows, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe in the next couple of FAQs, they can nerf down magic and shooting from what I believe to be the broken place that they're in right now. And then we'll have a more well-balanced game. Because I feel like if nerfing one hero breaks open the metagame, then I feel like it should have been done anyways. Because having one hero hold the entire metagame together is not a good thing.
I agree with you. Like, it is. We'll see what happens, but I agree again with Evan. Like I don't know why, but Americans, we just typically play evil. We brought Rob on the channel because he's the token that plays good.
Yeah, not anymore.
He switched sides.
Yeah, but it is kind of opens a floodgate for the American meta, because now everybody's just like, ooh, like I'm gonna play with even more bad toys. But I'm curious about it because in the UK I did see a lot of Lady of Lights. Like Evan said, in Germany you see it. I'm sure in Australia you see it also, and across Europe. Just for some reason,
they do their own thing over there.
Well, Rainier,
I don't think it's creating a big impact in the States, because you don't typically see her, I guess, outside of maybe you guys, the Iversons playing her. I don't know why people don't take her in the States. What was it, Rob? Sorry.
Yeah, Rainier, like exactly to your point. I didn't want to have to take her, right? But then I got so sick of losing, even with otherwise competitive armies, to Angmar magic to Corsair shooting to Spider Queen Bat Swarm plus magic in every list, that it almost became like I have to take her to level the field to have a game of Lord of the Rings, because the US meta is not only very evil heavy, it's also brutal. Like, we're awful over here. Like, we build lists. A lot of people here build lists designed purely to make you hate Lord of the Rings. So like in our meta, you took the tools you needed to like compete. And I feel like it might be different over in the UK or, you know, in Germany, Poland, wherever. But here, Lady of Light was kind of holding my ability to take a good army and feel good about it, knowing that if I run into those armies, I'm going to have a game, right? So I'm not going to steamroll them. And I know it was annoying because like Lady of Light plus Boromir, which by the way, now you'll never see Boromir Fellowship version ever again either, was like becoming really common in the various soup lists unless you were playing a Legion. But I don't like this kind of reductive approach of just like nerfing it out of the game. I would rather elevate things around it to make it less of an auto include, right? Because if you're going to start playing this race to the bottom, like, well, now Lady of Light was a problem, she's gone. Well, now we need to address Spider Queen, somebody was already talking about online. Well, now we need to address this and this and this. And you're going to start playing this game where, you know, Gollum and Goblin King is nasty. Who wants to play against that? Let's get rid of that. So like either like Evan, like you said, start from the bottom up and address all of it at once, or you're just going to play this constant whack-a-mole game where like the next thing is going to break the meta. And I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of it. I'll obviously adapt, but I would have preferred either having more options put on the good side that made her less appealing to take, or done a little bit more of a comprehensive like power tone down on both sides,
or increased her points. I mean,
sure.
To a certain extent. So GW, for whatever reason, has taken the position. I mean, I think I understand this because they don't want too many of these changes, but they've taken the position that they're not going to change the points of the figure.
Dad, I would like you to look to the left of the Galadriel Lady of Light FAQ.
Yeah, no, I know. That is, I think, the only time it has ever been done is the Iron Hills Ballista. And by the way, that was after about 3 iterations of just trying to make the Iron Hills Ballista work, none of which actually did the trick. But yeah, GW will literally try everything else before they will change points, and unfortunately that means you get kind of weird stuff happening where really what they needed to do was just they underpointed something, or they overpointed something. And you know, there's nothing wrong with the way the model worked. It was just that you know, it was either overpriced or underpriced. But alas, that is
alas.
I don't want to derail this conversation entirely, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this. So there's a specific set of heroes, both on the good and evil side, that I would consider, I guess, slappable almost. Like you can say, put them onto just a random army, and then they'll make that army better. And I think GW's approach at this point to those models is definitely like a negative one. You know, they dislike them in that sort of sense. So by slappable models, I mean Círdan, Shade, Galadriel, Lady of Light, what are some other ones? Cúldadan, yep. He's in there. To a lesser extent, something like Fellowship Boromir, he fits in a lot of lists. Gwahir is another one. Models like that, which you can sort of throw into a list and make it better. And I think it's definitely interesting seeing how they're going about, like, just sort of removing the ability to take these models. Because they've done this with Galadriel, they've done this with the Shade, and they've done this with Círdan, where instead of nerfing the models and making them less slappable, instead, they've just said, you know what? Screw this. We're not going to deal with this at all. You no longer can play these models. And I think it's kind of worrying for me, at least, because it feels like every time a new FAQ comes out, I just have to take some of my lists and throw them in the garbage bin. Like, I would be perfectly fine with saying, okay, these lists are less powerful now. They've nerfed these models. That's fine. I can still take them if I want to. But, you can't take those lists anymore. You literally cannot use them. And I feel like this is going to be a rabbit hole where, like what we said beforehand, we saw people talking about doing the same thing to the Spider Queen, dropping her down to Fortitude, which, by the way, doesn't work because then the Dark Denizens of Mirk would not be able to ally with anyone. But it's just concerning to me, I think, that their reaction to models being too powerful is to make it so you literally cannot take them.
Yeah, and Evan, I mean, in addition to what you said, like the entire conversation is essentially revolving around alliances. So rather than hitting the models, why don't you just reorganize the way alliances work, right? If you want to prevent certain things. I don't see how Lady of Light is breaking a Lothlorien army, for example, right? It's, maybe she's annoying when you can take her with Fellowship Boromir and Thranduil and whatever, but like just address the alliance system and work from the ground up on changing the way that works rather than eliminating models from the game, basically.
Yeah. I guess for the sake of time, we'll move through the other FAQs. I'm sure we could talk about this subject for quite a while.
Well, I mean, to be fair, this was kind of the big one, so it was going to eat the most time anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, true.
Well, there's one other one, but we'll get to that. So
yeah.
A slightly less controversial one, which is to Elrond, Master of Rivendell, his foresight of the Eldar rule. Change the second sentence to read: during the priority phase, after the dice have been rolled, so long as he is alive and on the battlefield, Elrond may choose to alter the controlling player's dice roll.
Probably for Maelstrom of Battle and Recon.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. There's another change here.
Yeah.
One that I think people have missed. You can only alter the controlling player's dice roll.
No, I don't think I could ever. I don't think I could ever alter the opponent.
Definitely last edition you could. I don't know about this edition. But that basically means that if your opponent lost priority last turn and they rolled a 6, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, no matter how many foresight points you had.
I don't remember him ever operating where he could alter an opponent's roll.
I remember somebody could do that.
Well, do we all agree he can do that now?
No, yeah. Well, even
he
in the
no
book,
longer
though,
can do that.
He can't alter the opponent's dice roll, so that didn't change. At least we can say.
Well, wait a second. What
must
is
have been last edition then?
Who is the controlling player?
The Elrond player.
It's the owning player.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I read that as the person that controlled priority.
No, it's not magic. So the controlling player and the owning player, I think they're always the same. I don't think there's a way to control an opponent.
Well, no, I thought it meant the player that controlled priority.
Ah, okay.
Okay, that's interesting because you and I both had opposite readings of the same FAQ. Good job. Good job, GW. Thanks for clarifying that. But
I kind of feel stupid because I didn't even realize you could do it the other way before.
I've
never seen anyone do that. So maybe I'm just bad at this and I should have been abusing that rule before. But to me, this is a non-change.
I might just be remembering last edition. Or I don't know.
It was probably last edition, yeah.
Maybe so. I don't remember it ever being like that, but it doesn't matter, guys. But
I guess I'm just old then.
All right, so let's move on to the armies of the Lord of the Rings. So if Boromir uses this is in the designer's notes, Boromir uses the Horn of Gondor, and one of the models he is engaged with in a fight has a special rule that allows him to automatically pass courage tests. Does this take precedence even if the model has a lower courage value than other models in the same fight? And the answer is yes, which I think that's at least a change from the way we played it, because the rule specifically said the one with the highest courage value had to test.
Yeah.
Next one, does the Fangorn army bonus mean that Ent models cannot be knocked prone? No, Ent models can still be knocked prone as normal, with the exception of the Call Winds, Nature's Wrath, Wrath of Bruin, and Sorceress Blast magical powers. So I assume that means that
Maybe hurl them somehow or whatever.
I was going to say, what other circumstances? Yeah, I guess
like a Balrog hurling an Ent, it would knock them down.
They would still get knocked down if they were in a combat that gets blasted, but they didn't get blasted, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that well.
Because you don't blast them, you blast another.
I think somebody specifically asked that on the GBHL, and I can't remember what the consensus
Well, it's actually in an FAQ this time around. We'll get to it later, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, the question isn't that. The question is whether that still counts as being affected by a magical power or not.
I can't see how it doesn't, but that doesn't mean that that's the way it's going to get ruled.
Yeah.
I mean, because
we'll see.
If Sorcerous Blast isn't knocking down the Ent in that situation, what is knocking down the Ent in that situation?
Then I guess they wouldn't be knocked down in that case because it's still the effect.
But isn't that only if they're directly targeted by the magic power?
It doesn't. Rule? It doesn't say that though. It can still be knocked.
True. Yeah. So I guess you probably, by that interpretation, you would not be able to knock them down by blasting into combat because it just simply says if that is the magical power that's in the affecting them, then no. So I mean, I don't think it matters how you do it. So,
whilst mounted on Treebeard, can Merry and Pippin be targeted individually by magical powers or special rules? Yes. Although any magical powers or special rules that target the entire models will also affect Treebeard, who can then attempt to resist as normal, if applicable.
Well, that gives Treebeard magic resistance and the ability to use the Hobbit's will to resist magic. Because if it affects the whole
only
model,
if it's affecting the entire model, yeah. Well, Treebeard is a horse now.
Although does it, right? Because if
I don't see how that wouldn't work in reverse.
Well, isn't it the same thing where you're like affecting, because you're affecting two models, right? And one of them has resist and the other doesn't. If you choose to resist with the guy who doesn't have resistance to magic, then you
can't use Treebeard's will if you use the resistance to magic. But what I'm saying is, like, if Pippin is on there and you want to use his will instead, you can operate with his resistance to magic.
That is but that's only if you target Merry or Pippin. If you target Treebeard.
But I don't think I think because it's just like Nature's Wrath. Nature's Wrath affects multiple models. Any model affected can resist. This, now you're targeting Treebeard, the whole model is affected, therefore Merry and Pippin are affected, and therefore, by that same logic, anyone affected can resist.
Well, so the difference is it's kind of like you said, he's a horse, right? If it's a black dart, it'll target individual pieces of the model. If it's something that affects the whole model,
but that's specific to black dart.
But
I mean, it's illogical in that case. We all agreed that when that FAQ came out, it's not realistic because no one played it that way. But black dart is the only spell in the game that can target individuals without the whole model being affected.
Well, all right. I just want to point out the predicate to this FAQ.
I think like Flame Burst is another one, right? I don't know, but
no,
that's
that
the big one.
Both actually.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, no, literally, Black Dart's the only one that does it. It's weird. Yeah. It's a weird ruling, honestly.
Just to circle back, the predicate to this FAQ is: can Merry and Pippin be targeted individually by magical powers or special rules? And then and the answer to that question is yes, but then Treebeard is affected. That doesn't work in reverse. Right? There's nothing that says that if one targets Treebeard, Merry and Pippin are also affected.
But why would it not work in reverse? I mean, it's saying the whole model is affected when. So you're just saying because of strictly, if you go strictly on
the passengers rules say otherwise, right? If I'm remembering correctly, if your passengers and the thing that you're riding on gets hit, you are not hit.
If I fire a sword. Yeah, but if I fire any magical power at a mounted model, the horse also is affected.
Yeah, but passengers is different from mounted.
So basically, the passenger rule, you're saying that if the passenger rule does not specifically say that, then therefore this rule, I guess it's logical. Yeah, I mean, then this wording would apply to a very, very niche case scenario. So I guess it does depend on what the passenger wording is.
But okay, so isn't there another FAQ buried in here somewhere that also says that a model targeted by power cannot use their mount's will to resist unless the mount is specifically targeted?
Yeah, but we should stop talking about
passengers
mounts.
Are not mounts, I suppose.
Yes. None of this
but the precedent still exists.
Let's move on to our fourth flowy FAQ, shall we? Because that's a perfectly unambiguous special rule that he has.
All right. So I'm going to be looking up this passenger stuff. Somebody else talk flowy, and then we'll circle back to.
All right. So can Floy Stonehand use his Lore Master special rule to negate special rules that are not listed as either active or passive, such as those found in the Legendary Legion or War Beast model abilities such as Trample? And the answer is no. You can only use it for active and passive rules. This is actually, I think, how I've always used it. I don't think I ever thought it could affect like how a model functions, those parts of the rules and such. So that doesn't change anything for me. I think at this point, though, they might just want to give Floy a totally different ability because like this one causes so many questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty simple there. And then I guess moving on to the FA, well, unless anyone has any statements on that one, but do Tom Bombadil and Goldberry have to take courage tests in order to charge an invisible model? No, they may charge an invisible model without having to take a courage test. I think this is fitting to the lore. I do not think Tom would not be able to see anyone wearing the ring.
He specifically can see people wearing the ring in the lore. So
then there you go. Okay, so then perfect. So and they ought to pass courage tests anyway. So even without this FAQ, I imagine this was pretty logical. So yeah, Matt, I would need you to scroll down.
All right. And by the way, the passenger rules say nothing that would resolve this particular quandary. So maybe we just move on from that.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, to be fair,
another FAQ
it's like
is
never going to come up. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
We need another FAQ.
It's a situation that just doesn't matter in a way.
Can the Watcher in the water still use its tentacle special rule if it has moved over half its distance? And the answer is yes, though it still suffers the -1 penalty for moving and shooting, which is interesting considering it's like, I mean, whatever. Yeah. So
this is another one where I wonder why the question was even asked, because I'm fairly sure it's stated in his rules that they count as throwing weapons. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, like it's a pretty obvious one to me, but hey, go.
There were some interpretations out on the GBHL that were saying that because I don't know, I'll have to look that one up. I don't think it says that they count as throwing weapons, and there was some stuff about how it doesn't actually count as shooting, even though it uses the shooting rules. This was one of those really confusing rules that got more confusing as it got kind of hodgepodge thing. All right, so tentacles.
Well, let's
in the shoot phase, the Watcher may make D6 shooting attacks. All right, so they were shooting. So nothing in here says that they're throwing weapons. It just says it can make D6 shooting attacks. These have a range of 6 and a strength of 3 and never require in the way rules. And then there was there was a question of, can they move full and then shoot? And the answer was yes, but the answer wasn't yes because they're throwing weapons. The answer was yes because it's not really like shooting. And then I think that's when this question came up about, do they get the -1 penalty for shooting and moving?
Rabbit hole that went down.
Oh, yeah. Man. So now we have a tentacle clause for shooting. So,
all right. So, what is the next FAQ? And the answer is, does the Golden King of Akraban riches beyond renown special rule decrease an enemy model's courage value for the duration of the turn or remainder of the game? It's duration of the turn, which, it's
pretty obvious.
Yep. I think that's how everyone played it. Can models other than the Mummic War Leader or Muhad Beastmaster be placed on the fork section outside the Howdah? No. Any other models or riding must be in the Howdah, which I think the rules state, but I could be wrong. But okay, great clarification there.
I think the rules only state how you deploy them, but it doesn't specifically say somebody couldn't theoretically move and jump into that section. But who was ever doing that? So
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could jump off a building and try to mount the Mummic that way.
That's what Legolas did at a tournament once upon a time, right?
There's been another FAQ that says that you can't do that now because that was far too much fun.
The Dead of Dunhero army bonus changed the second sentence to read, additionally, warbands from this army list that contain 8 to 12 models do not need a hero to be the captain of the warband. Actually, I think that's a good... okay, I guess that would be a confliction with the way the rules are written. So that's just clarification based on they wrote the rule wrong. So
you
Elrond
can't
Master...
You can't have an infinite number of one dead warband.
Because the rules state that you must have a hero lead the warband, but that's impossible with the way that sentence. So they just were clearing up an impossibility.
I think that's just cleanup. Yeah,
it's cleanup.
Okay.
That's all it is.
Isn't that just the case that there used to be a rule where you can have 8 or more models per warband? So like you could have a warband of like 25.
Okay, that's probably what it is.
And so now the warband itself must be capped at 12.
Got it.
Okay.
But
Makes sense.
We'd have to actually look at the rule to figure that out.
Yeah, we can't do that.
I might just double check.
The Elrond thing is the same, so we can skip that one.
No, I think we should talk about it again.
It's still confusing.
So important it was listed twice.
We were talking about how the Galadriel change was metagame defining, but this, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Twice. Easterling Dragon Knights can now lead acolytes, Dragon Cult acolytes. So that's a good change. I think everyone was laughing at the fact that they couldn't. I'm glad to see that has been altered.
That was an oversight, right?
Yeah. Well, almost kind of weird to say, because it's like, I imagine they didn't know acolytes would exist at the time they wrote the rule. So, you know.
Well, they should have put it into the acolyte rules, right? But nobody probably thought of it. So it was just one of those funny things that slipped through the cracks, but was clearly never intentional.
Can we skip over battle companies?
Yeah, we're a competitive podcast. We don't
play battle companies.
I play battle companies.
So just to clarify the dead.
Clarify the dead.
Yeah, so the previous rule is the King of the Dead gains Harbingers of Evil, and then additionally, warbands from this army list that contain 8 or more models do not need a hero to be the captain of the warband.
So essentially, 100-man warband.
Yeah. Up until now, you could have King of the Dead in one warband, and then second warband be 25 Army of Dead if you wanted.
So Gondor War didn't change, we're assuming.
Gondor War had no changes. So we're going to go to the match play guides. All right. Ooh, bunch of them here.
So in scenarios where you score victory points for wounding specific heroes, if a hero model is wounded, then it is subsequently healed. Does it still count as victory points? Yes. I think everyone played it like that. In scenarios where you score victory points for breaking enemy's force, if the game ends and at the end of the turn, which one force has killed enough models to break the enemy force at the start of the next turn, do they still score the victory points? Yes, which that actually I think was clarified in the last edition. And
I think everyone's played it that way, at least mostly.
Ever since.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it's good to have that clarified because you're always going to get that guy that's going to be like, well, actually, right?
Yeah, I'm not.
I am that guy.
So.
In scenarios where the model can exit the board, do they need to move off the board entire? Or just a portion of their base, or touch the edge of the board? That was actually a big question that came up multiple times for me. They will need to move part of their base off the board. So now, if you get a sliver of your base off the board, you're off the board.
But that's always been the case. Huh?
No, I think it has been a question. I remember a game against me and Damien where I actually counted myself as I hadn't made it off the board yet because I can only get half the model off. We played a game of Recon in a film match at Articon.
I think generally this is one of those ones where generally people played it that way, but it was never expressly stated.
Yeah, because otherwise things like Watcher would never be able to move off the board or something like that because you only move 4 and the base is larger than 4 or something. Something silly like that.
Yeah. In Clash by Moonlight scenario, can models with the Cave Dweller special rules still see models at distances greater than 12 inches away? Yes. Additionally, shooting attacks the targeted model with the Cave Dweller rule do not gain a bonus of +1 when rolling wing. That is actually a great clarification because I agree with that. That's exactly how that should have been played.
But wait, read the next inconsistent rule.
In the Clash by Moonlight scenario, if models have been illuminated by an effect such as blinding light, can they be targeted by shooting attacks, magical powers, or special rules at great distances greater than 12 inches away? Yes. Although shooting attacks will still gain the +1 rolling. So I guess they still can't see the arrow coming. Maybe that's
you
can see them, but you can't see the arrow coming. So there's your logic for you, Matt.
Yeah, take a faulty premise and just lean harder into it.
So Goblin Bowfire is now even better in these scenarios.
In Clash by Moonlight.
Yeah, because not only do you shoot over 12, you get the bonus. Your opponent cannot shoot at you over 12, and when they do shoot at you within 12, they don't get the bonus.
I think that the only thing is you still never bring Goblin Archers because the darkness scenarios just don't come up enough.
I was going to say, I think there's a grand total of 1.
Yeah.
I guess it affects throwing weapons, right? So like Prowler's better, other throwing weapons worse.
I still have traumatizing moments from an early game my father and I played in SBG, where it was just, this edition had just come out. He had the Balrog with Moria goblins and a bunch of archers, and I had Lothlorien and a bunch of elf archers, and it was Clash by Moonlight. And I, for some reason or another, I had a lot of archers, and he outshot me.
Yep.
Because he could see me, I couldn't see him. So I was just getting gunned down. Oof. My elves would get gunned down by these goblin archers, and it was traumatizing.
Yeah, goblin, and now it's going to be even more traumatizing. So everybody dust off your goblin archers, because in that one particular scenario, you will rule the board.
If I set up blinding light, then my guys can't even dodge the arrows anymore.
Right. All right, so let's move on to the rules manual. Okay, if a model re-rolls a dice, which probably means if a model re-rolls a die, does the second roll also count as a natural roll? The answer is yes. Okay, I think we knew that, but now we know that. What happens if two models both wish to use the same special rule to automatically gain priority, such as Saruman with the Palantir? This is the Saruman Civil War FAQ. In this situation, both players roll off for priority as normal, although both will count as having used the special rule, which would be kind of anticlimactic for those particular situations. But in what situations can models move off the board? Models may only move off the board in scenarios that specifically allow it, or if they have a special rule that permits them to do so, such as a war beast that's stampeding. Models may only ever move off the board voluntarily and may not be forced off the board by the effect of an enemy model, such as the command control magical power models that models cannot back away off the board. So yes, there is, in case we didn't know before, there is an invisible force field that surrounds the board that blocks you from moving off, unless it doesn't. Okay, so moving on. In scenarios that use the reinforcements rule for models to enter the board, can a player purposely pick a point for a warband to arrive they would not be able to fit in order to force them to not enter the board and have to wait until later in the turn? No. When a warband enters the board via the rules for reinforcements, the player choosing where they enter must choose a point where they can enter and one where the entire warband will be able to move onto the board. So I suppose a really canny opponent with a large army and a lot of time to prepare can like block off and know where that guy is going to arrive if he comes on that particular side of the board. But okay. So I guess the alternative was, if there was any place where you wouldn't be able to come on, you could say, oh, yep, I'm going to wait till next turn, which you can't do anymore.
The crazy part is people actually abuse this.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So. Yep. Do a model's weapons provide an in the way roll if they are only part of the model, obscuring the target of a shooting attack? No. The only part of the model that is obscuring the target of a shooting attack is its war gear, weapon, shields, banners, etc. This is not sufficient to provide an in the way rule because model eye view is even more complicated than it needs to be. What happens first in the phase of the game? Declaring heroic actions or resolving special rules that happen at the start of the phase. Declaring heroic actions will happen first unless otherwise stated. I'm sure that's
actually a good clarification because I've actually always resolved that it's happening at the same time if whenever possible. So it's actually a good clarification.
Yeah, nothing kind of leaps to mind where that would matter, but I'm sure that there are situations where that would matter. So.
Well, and a good portion of special rules that would be affected by that clarify that they happen before or after heroic actions as well.
If a hurled model hits a combat that contains a model with strength 6 or higher, would the model that is strength 6 or higher still suffer the strength 3 hit for hurled model hitting them in combat, even though they are not knocked prone? The answer is yes. I seem to recall this is certainly how we played it, and I think this is how the rule actually read, but now we know.
Can we pause for just a second and can I ask a question? I don't have my book in front of me, but does the Shadow Lord's rules or the Knight of Umbar's rules specifically say it happens before heroic actions are declared? Because if not, he suddenly got good.
No, because even though you declare a heroic action like strike, you're only
specify unmodified.
It says before heroic actions are declared.
Never mind, he still sucks.
Yep.
But if it didn't say that, they would strike first and then he could copy, right? So oops.
Yeah.
Glimmer of hope extinguished.
I think there was a specific FAQ on that specific thing.
Not in this version.
Yeah. Well, it would be somewhere not in pink, and I don't think we're going to go through all the stuff that's not in pink in order to figure out where that is.
Nope.
But
that was a very specific Knight of Umbar related question. I don't feel like digging more. But
Knight of Umbar specifically says he declares before her actions.
Because otherwise,
they should FAQ that out, and he would be okay.
I was going to say, otherwise he might actually have a use on the table. But. When a war beast tramples, does it have to use its full movement allowance, or can it decide to move less than its move allowance? And the answer is it must move its full move allowance unless it is forced to stop or chooses to stop after coming into contact with a friendly model.
This is a crazy rule. That actually really hurts the war beast, in my opinion, because now if you only need to move 7 inches, but if you move that 1/8 inch because you're going to hit a building, now you got to hit the building in order to trample whatever the hell you were coming into contact with, unless you have some, way of like this. Actually, really, I think hurts them, and it is kind of ironic that you can now.
Or if there's 4 inches of the opponent's models, and then if you keep going, there's all of your models, and you don't want to run over.
But
your
you can
models,
stop.
You can stop on your own.
Stop on your own models.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
But now it's like you have to position your own models to stop your damn beast from hitting a building.
Yeah,
which
is odd, right? That this war beast can't stop if it's going to hit a building, but if it's a guy dressed differently than your opponent, it's like, whoa, I must stop.
It is very strange. I think this FAQ kind of sucks. Like that one. I mean, war beasts are already not taken, already not great, and now this just is like it's like why can't I stop the war beast voluntarily?
Have you ever ridden an angry elephant?
Are they angry at this point, though? The elephant's just kind of moving about, right? That's what the
elephant
stampede
that's
rule is
angry,
for.
Except when it sees its friends, where it's just like, nope, I don't want to hurt you.
Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, it's always just permanently pissed off.
Yeah.
Weird change, but it's
very
the game now.
All right. Can a war beast trample an invisible model? Answer yes. I think
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Can a war beast be made to leave the board by means other than stampede, such as command, compel, magical power? No, which is consistent with everything else above. Can a war beast be affected by special rules that force it to move, such as the Wood Elf Sentinels, Eldamar Madrigal, or a Deadmar Spectre's A Fell Light is in them? And the answer is no. And I don't think that was clear prior to that, and I'm glad they made it. So that actually helps.
Could you take your Mummic at any point in the game, like when it's about to die, walk it off the board? Does it count as dead? Does it actually count as dead?
You can only do it in a scenario that allows it.
Oh yeah, I guess that other FAQ does apply to still this model.
Yeah, it has to be stampeded off the board, which means it's your opponent's choice to send it off.
So you can't accidentally trample it off the board because it stops at the board edge, right?
Yeah,
because that's the thing. Like that's not one of the clauses though that stop me from getting that.
So here's another question.
I guess now what you can do is, how the ring wraiths could use their magical powers to pop themselves and end the game. Now you can just slam the Mumak against a bunch of buildings, have it die, and then all the guys on top die, and then there you go, you're broken.
Yep.
So it says a war beast can trample an invisible model. Does that mean it can trample a friendly invisible model? Like, can it actually stop if it hits Gollum?
Yeah, I mean, there's no restriction.
Yeah, it can tell apparently that he's
invisible. That the invisible model is friendly.
Yeah,
it just says an invisible model, not a friendly or an enemy invisible model.
So it's funny. That's not where I thought you were going with that. I thought you were going to say, well, it says it can trample an invisible model. Does that mean it can't trample 2 invisible models?
So what happens if you're walking and then you hit the board edge? Do you just bounce off?
Yep.
Yeah,
like from a house or
no. Houses actually give you damage though.
Yeah.
Houses damage.
No,
the board edge is a friendly model.
The board
you
edge
recognize it.
The board edge is a cushy force field. Just like if you hurl somebody into the board edge, they stop but they don't take the strength 6 hit for hitting a non-cushy force field. So, all right. If a modifier has modifiers to its dual roll, such as using a two-handed weapon, and then gets to re-roll their dual roll, do the modifiers still apply to the re-roll? The answer is yes. I think we all knew that. Mm-hmm. All right. Scrolling down, if a model that must charge due to a special rule is affected by the command compel magical power, is it still required to charge during the move? Answer is yes.
Theodred must charge even though you compelled him.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, how if Theodred is angry and reckless and wants to charge, then he gets compelled. Why would he still have to charge a model? That doesn't make sense to me.
Why would he still be angry and reckless?
Why would he still be able to charge though?
Aren't you immobilized at the end of that?
You can compel somebody into combat. I think that's the thing. So I think what they're talking about is, say, the example we're using is Theodred, right? He has to charge. Mm-hmm. Now you compel him. He is in charge range of a model.
He has to charge.
You have to compel him into that model now.
Yeah.
You can't say move him backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Which doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, so you're saying that the person casting the command compel is now commanded and compelled to charge him with that command compel move.
Yeah.
As opposed to putting him out of position.
Yeah. Exactly. You can't run Theodred away now. Like,
yes.
So, I mean, that is just like, my brain doesn't understand why that would ever be the case for a person commander compelling and be like,
the whole point is the caster can choose where the model goes. The model has no agency over where they go. They can't just be forced to charge because they're angry. Like, this makes no sense.
It's kind of like, I compel you to, oh wait, you want to charge? Yeah, that's fine. Come on, just go this way, right? Yeah, that's weird.
I mean, I guess it's consistent.
You know what? I'm the closest model. Charge me.
All right.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's consistent with, I suppose, rules logic. If you just simply think of it as, the model is moving, it must charge. That's the rule, right? And so now here you're moving the model. So therefore, it must charge. I don't know. I guess it's clean.
Okay, can you make a model dismount with a command compel? I forget.
No, you cannot.
You can't. Okay.
Well, all right. So here's this. So I assume then, because you can only command compel half move, right? So you've got Theodred on his horse. If he moved 10 inches, he could charge somebody. He's being compelled, so he can only move 5 inches, which means he can't charge anybody. So conceivably, you could take the 5 inches and move him directly away.
Yeah, because you couldn't charge. You must charge if able to do so.
Yeah.
Right.
So if there is an enemy within 5, you're gonna have to charge the enemy. If there isn't, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
So now, like, you never want to command or compel Dane because he's probably within charge range of something, mixing it up. But now if you compel him or command him, you're not moving him out of position to make him worse. You're just charging him into your own stuff again.
All of your models first, make a 4-inch bubble around Dane, and then compel him.
But then if you're doing as a heroic move with your ring wraith, then that doesn't help.
Yep, you're screwed.
Yep. All right. Well, I have to admit that FAQ did not go in the direction I thought it was going to go when I read it the first time. So,
well, then you just transfix instead, and then he just stays there.
Yeah, right. Basically, you got to transfix. That's
or you black dart his boar.
Yeah. Boy, that's talk about a trap for the unwary. That's definitely going to be a gotcha that somebody's going to be pulling out of the hat.
Yeah.
Somebody that didn't read the second rule book, right?
Yeah. Right. If the Shroud of Shadow's magical power is cast upon a cavalry model, will the steed automatically bolt in the same way it would do if the rider put on the one ring? Answer: no. A steed bolting because of the rider putting on the one ring is due to the wearing the ring part of the rules for the one ring, not the invisible rules, which, if I seem to recall, don't actually exist. Like, the invisible rules only exist within the ring rules. But setting that issue aside, does this mean that the horse?
Is invisible.
It's an invisible horse.
Yeah, invisible horse. Okay. All right.
Of course.
It's an invisible fell beast, actually, suddenly.
I mean, Shroud of Shadows, I think, is only on 2 models in the game? Necromancer and him.
Yeah. And Ashrak, it doesn't apply to because he can't cast it to any models that.
So realistically, this
so
will
it's
never.
Just the Necromancer.
So, you know what? I think I've seen this before. People were using Azog and the Necromancer in combo.
Yeah, this is the invisible Azog on Warg.
Yeah, on White Warg.
Would you make a War Beast invisible?
No, because when you target, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, the Howdah wouldn't be affected by the spell.
So it's a floating Howdah.
You target the guy on top. It affects the guy on top and the War Beast, but not the Howdah.
Oh boy, we nearly killed Rob with that.
Oh my God! Give me another week before floating Howdahs, guys. Oh, ow!
Oh boy, there's an image.
Especially like if you
the models on the Howdah get affected?
No.
Could you imagine the movies if the
don't.
Mumuk War Leader was on a floating Howdah doing those faces?
And then at the same time you have Rutabi or like whatever the name of it. Yeah, like the Darth Vader shaman guy being like, "Come here," and then this floating Howdah is just floating across the table.
Wow!
All right, now I want to see somebody actually like model the invisible Mumak, so they can actually like
just
switch out the model.
Pure resin Mumuk.
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to see like Rohan Horseman running into it and bouncing off as an invisible wall.
All right.
So next rule.
If a cavalry model is affected by the Fortify Spirit magical power, does this also affect their mount, meaning that the mount would also gain 2 free dice to resist a magical power, read Black Dart, that targets it directly, such as Black Dart? Answer is yes, which I think is the way we played this, which was a really important reason to have Galadriel, Lady of Light, whom we can no longer burn. So,
but if you're auto fortified, your horses are better now.
Yep. Can a prone model cast magical powers? No.
Wait,
that
hold
is
on.
straight up. That's an errata. That's like a straight up errata. Like,
yeah,
that's huge.
It's a big change, but I just want to go back to that. It says affected by the Fortify Spirit magical power, which I don't think Glorfindel and Elendil technically are.
They are because they specifically say they always count as being affected by the Fortify Spirit magical power.
Yeah.
So
that's the way that rule reads.
So honestly, Elendil, now that you can't have Lady of Light, he's going to be everywhere, right?
Wow.
So
now on to the next nonsensical rule.
Now this one's crazy to me. That's because I'm pretty sure in the battle, the Wizards duel in the movies, like Saruman blasted Gandalf while on the ground.
Yeah, but that was always the case here with the pro models. Like I remember years and years playing Saruman and being like, okay, I stand up, I do the blast, I lie down. I stand up, Sorcerer's Blast, lie down.
But you only did that because you can only move 1 inch, which you can't do that anymore because you can only get up or get down once. But even at a time, you could get more mileage going 3 inches than if you crawled 1 inch. So that's why you stood up. You didn't do that because you couldn't cast the spell. You did it because you moved further.
Also did it because he could see that way.
I could,
and because he could see.
I could also cast a spell when I stood up. I never thought you can cast a spell when you're lying down.
Yeah, but what prevented you from ever casting a spell while lying down? Like, why wouldn't you be able to do
dramatic necessity? One cannot
because I was napping.
One cannot summon the gravitas to cast a spell if one is laying on the ground like a groveling knave.
So realistically, though, this will never really come up that often. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not a huge change because if you knock someone down, they're going to get up to cast. And if you knock someone down and you don't want them to get up to cast, you're going to charge them, in which case they couldn't cast anyway. So realistically, what
about the Vanquishers of the Necromancer, though? They can cast in
maybe
combat.
that's why this was maybe the FAQ was talking strictly about the Vanquishers. Then.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I bet this is an anti-Vanquishers FAQ. That was kind of hidden in the weeds here.
Well, I guess you could theoretically, again, like lie down and cast Blinding Light but just be a prone model projecting it or something. But it's really irrelevant. Mostly.
No, this is
an
anti-vanquisher. This is an
anti-vanquisher's thing. Yeah.
Yep. If a model is listed as having 2 of something, for example, 2 axes, would the shatter magical power destroy both of the same piece of war gear or just one of the selected piece of war gear?
Will they lose an attack?
It does not say that.
I was about to say, I'm surprised they're not going with their philosophy of 2 weapons means 2 attacks.
Nope, you just use the 1 weapon you have left twice as fast. If a model in combat is affected by the Sorcerous Blast magical power, will any models of strength 6 or higher in the same combat be knocked prone and take a strength 3 hit as well? And the answer is yes. Oh, so I think we had previously said this was not going to be the case, and here they said it is going to be the case.
Yeah, we talked about a lot.
This has nothing to do with
that, but this is a common thing that everyone did back when Nazgul were all over the place. This is like super normal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people play this wrong, though, especially with the strength 6 rule right above it. I've had this happen to me in tournaments, big tournaments, and judge rule it the other way. The entire Gwaihir Gandalf combo that we had talked about on this podcast was predicated on this. So I think it's good to get this in to make sure everyone's playing it right.
Same page.
Yeah,
I think it might be a generational divide. Because people who played last edition, everybody knew this because you do this to Felbeasts.
Yeah.
One of the main ways to deal with a Felbeast without them being able to resist was you charge a Felbeast in another model, blast that other model, and knock the Felbeast over. But nowadays it doesn't come up as often, so I can see how people would get confused over it.
I mean, it happened to me at Articon, and I was playing the Spanish Master, so I can't imagine he didn't know the rules, right? I think it's just maybe confusingly written. That's all.
Yep. All right. If a model is wounded by the ongoing strength 5 hits from Set Ablaze, is the model that caused them to be Set Ablaze considered to have done these wounds? The answer is yes. Which I guess matters for certain scenario-based things. If a model has the Master of Battle X plus special rule, attempts to copy an enemy model's heroic action, but fails the roll for Master of Battle X plus, can they still spend a point of might to declare heroic action that phase? The answer is yes.
Good.
Which I think is how we played it, at least. Can the model with the swift movement special rule charge an enemy model so that it finishes its movement attached to a wall or angle that allows other models to move underneath it? Answer is no. A degree of common sense is needed when using models with the swift movement special rule. Whilst they can move over terrain at strange angles and positions that other models cannot, they must finish in a reasonable position where their base is as close to flat as possible on the playing surface. So I believe there was a time when Jake Hall brought a whole bunch of spiders and a bunch of blue tack to a tournament so that he could actually blue tack the spiders onto walls and stuff like that. I guess that is now a tactic of the past.
My God, of course he did. Of course he did.
Yeah.
Surprising no one.
All right, next one. If a model with monstrous charge special rule charges into difficult terrain, will they still get the extra attack and knock to the ground bonuses? The answer is yes, unless they have a cavalry keyword, in which case the rules for cavalry will mean that they do not gain these bonuses. So I think I had to look this up once as a TO, and I think I came to this conclusion, but it took me a while to get there, but now we have a clean FAQ that gets there quickly. When making strikes against a model with a monstrous charge special rule, do models have to roll an in the way test to strike the rider if it is a cavalry model? The answer is no. Part of the rule that mentions in the way test is specifically for shooting attacks.
Why does this exist?
I don't know. No idea.
I don't know either.
That's so weird.
Apparently people were playing it wrong, so I'm glad nobody can again.
Yeah.
Are any models that subsequently... Well, okay, hang on a second. Does this mean... Oh, no. Okay, yeah, you're right. It's just shooting attack. Are any models that subsequently charge a model with monstrous charge that itself charge into combat also knocked prone if the model with monstrous charge wins the fight? The answer is yes, providing they have a strength value lower than that of the model. With
it's just like cavalry. So
yep, right.
Yeah.
Model drops a light object. Where is it placed? When it drops a light object, it's placed in base contact with the model that dropped it. It must be placed so that it is not overlapping another model's base. Okay. There's an army.
Actually, does that clear up the question of who places it?
No, it does not.
Awesome. Oh well, I guess it would always be the model when a model drops a light object.
Yeah. So the model that drops
it's always the model owner, right?
Yeah, I guess these are the only one who would ever drop it. Because is there any way a controlling player can force you to drop something?
I know. Can you do that with a compel?
Compel can.
Yeah, you can compel them.
So okay. So in that circumstance, are you now the one who chooses?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so.
I would just use a scatter die personally. It's a gamble on it.
It's always difficult with you, isn't it, Rob?
I just like to have fun.
Yeah. Does an army have to include a hero model to be the leader? Yes. And
like how is that even a question? Like
whether you could take like an army of the dead that just had a whole bunch of dead.
Yeah, but I think there was another thing where someone wanted to take like 1 billion Wozes at like 400 points without Gonbury gone.
Or 1 billion fell wargs.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there like the first rule of the army building is that you pick your leader or something like that?
No. The first rule of army building is that nobody talks about army building. Come on, Nick.
Yes.
I think you just put us out of business.
Yeah, right. Okay, so then we get to errata. Untrained crew, add the following. A siege engine may never use the shoot value of an untrained crew, even if it is better than that of the trained crew. I had thought, but this is me speaking without looking. I had thought that if you had untrained crew in there, you automatically hit on a 6, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
I assume the philosophy is that you'd already have enough people that are trained to fire the siege engine, and then you chuck in an untrained crew with a lower shoot value, and then they'd be able to contribute that shoot value without needing the 6.
Yeah, I had thought that as soon as you put untrained crew in there that you automatically hit on a 6, but maybe that's if you only have untrained crew. I don't know.
I mean, I might just be making this up. I don't have a book next to me.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to Quest of the Ring Bearer. Let's see if there's anything new in there.
I don't remember if there was.
One thing, the passive Caladriel scenario setup. Add the following at the end of the paragraph. Finally, flip the cards that make up the passive Caladriel face up.
Oh, thank God.
I'm glad they fixed that. That's been haunting me ever since that rule book came out. Scouring of the Shire.
Don't think there's anything in here.
And that's a big load of nothing. War in Rohan. And nothing there, which brings us, of course, to the fall of the Necromancer.
Don't think there's
how cinematic.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Here's the one we've all been waiting for. If Azog uses the surprise attack special rule from the Pits of Dol-Guldur, a legendary legion, in the same priority phase as an enemy model that uses a special rule that would allow them to win the roll for priority, what happens? Answer: Azog's surprise attack will take precedence over other special rules that confer this effect, such as Saruman using a Palantir. If they both use the same in the same priority phase, then both will still count as having been used. So take that, Saruman.
Doesn't this contradict the previous FAQ, though?
No, it basically does contradict.
It doesn't.
But it
the one from the
just gives an exception. Is basically what this is saying. It's like,
because I think the previous FAQ we read like 30 minutes ago or whatever said they cancel out and they both count as being used.
Yeah,
so you
but
use them like a dispel scroll, right?
It's another exception.
That was exactly for the same rule though. So if both players use Palantir, then it just cancelled and you roll for priority. If both players use surprise attack, it's cancelled. You roll for priority.
Got it. So it only
if one uses surprise attack, the other uses Palantir, then surprise attack wins.
Okay. I didn't realize the previous one was just for Palantir on Palantir violence, but that makes sense then.
Yep. Well, unless it's
a priority ranking like with the ring ranking.
Or surprise attack on surprise attack violence.
Yeah.
It's a little strange. It's not in like part of the main rule book, like main rules and stuff like that. But never mind.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's here. Okay, so that brings us to the Vanquishers of the Necromancer. Nothing wrong there. Additional rules. Change the first bullet to read: the Vanquishers of the Necromancer must always include Galadriel, Lady of Light, Gandalf the Grey, and Saruman the White. Saruman the White is always the army's leader.
Basically blocking out Radagast.
Yep. Yeah, that's poor Radagast. He's always the guy who never gets invited.
It also makes them unplayable at 450 points, where a lot of people were taking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Masters of Magic change to read: friendly models may still attempt to cast magical powers even if they're already engaged in combat, with the exception of Sorcerer's Blast, Wrath of Bruinen, and the Nature's Wrath magical powers, and any other magical power we think of that would be useful to cast when you are already engaged in combat.
I mean,
Immobilize.
Useful.
I mean, obviously this is a good change. You've heard it all over the place that this was a horrifyingly abusive and very unfun legion to fight against. I think it brings them from really competitive to I don't think you're going to see this legion all over the place anymore.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think you'll still see it, right? I don't think it's going to be everywhere, but I think the casting in combat was the only thing super wrong with the Legion in the first place. This kind of brings them back down to earth, right?
If they couldn't cast in combat, then they wouldn't be casting the whole game.
I mean, they still all have 3 attacks with a banner and, fight 5 and strikes and heals and all sorts of stuff. And it only matters if they lost priority, because if they win priority, they can knock everyone down anyway. So, I think there's still a lot of play there. It's just not like an autopilot anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be these guys would be in their little group. You'd finally win priority and get your guy, manage to pass enough card chests to charge everybody. And then you'd finally get everybody in and surrounded, and then these massive detonations of Wrath of Bruin and Nature's Wrath would go off, and then all of a sudden your entire army is on the ground. So that's obviously what they're dealing with.
Now you actually force them to spend resources like might and will and maybe even fate, right? So and so there's now counterplay, but they're still really strong if in a good hands. I think the Gandalf change is a more impactful almost in a way, because it just completely limits how you can build the army now.
And honestly, they with Radagast and Elrond being your only 2 Nature's Wrath units, it kind of makes it very hard to get that spell in there. So, because they're the ones you're not required to take. So,
all right. So that brings to the end a very information-filled podcast.
Hats off to anyone who stayed for the whole 3 hours that we've been filming.
Yeah, that's right. Finally got to the end and realized that your favorite army Vanquishers.
People are going to see that timestamp on YouTube and they're going to be like, "Nope." What?
We started at 9. It's only 11. It's only been 2 hours. They're gonna love it. We talked about Rings of Power.
2 hours. Okay.
It's 2 hours and some change, I think, because I think we started a little bit.
Okay. Well, at least we didn't get to the golden 3 number. That's what I was worried about. I was like,
so I mean, we're actually recording this on the eve of one of the biggest days and biggest events of the year, and of course we mean the dropping of the Rings of Power trailer. So everybody, we're looking forward to that, and hopefully we'll be talking about that next time.
All right, talk to you.
Absolutely.
Bye guys.
Bye.